him coming to the UK, he doesn't need armed security. He really doesn't need armed security. He is not, despite the five risks that he says he's vulnerable to. None of those really put him above anybody else.
How selfish that you didn't get your way and you're in a bad mood. So now you're going to show up, or you're going to refuse to show up to a few of these charities.
She can call the tune now and decide when to pull the plug and what she might accept by. I bet they're desperate to settle this, I think he may have met his match. This is going to be gripping stuff. And Harry, is in the unfortunate position that he's not the claimant, he's the defendant. So he's got no choice but to defend it.
To understand why this visit matters, you need to understand RAVEC, the Royal and VIP Executive Committee. This isn't a royal family decision. It's a home office body made up of police, government officials, and royal household representatives. And its job is to assess protective security for royals and
the close protection team. You'll have those that are actually with the principal all the time. Then you'll have the advance, and the advance is basically close protection guys who will go ahead of the principal before they arrive to make sure everything's good, everything's in the right shape. But the advance will have also been to that venue probably some days, if not weeks, if not months, depending on the level of that principal, to verify that that location is safe to go to in the first place. Now, that causes for venues, I know this because when I've walked into various places, I've said, look, we're guests, we're here, this is your home, we don't want to intrude, but we do need to make sure it's safe and secure for our principal to come to. And the more cooperation and collaboration you can give us, the better. And then we'll sit down with them, we'll look at the routes, we'll look at where we're going to debus the principals outside the vehicle, where the press pen's going to be so they can get all their fantastic photographs, where there will be small children, babies they can kiss the heads off, all the sort of stuff that you would standardly do on these sort of things.
Other VIPs on a case-by-case basis. The framework RAVEC reportedly uses comes down to three things. Capability. Can a credible threat actually reach the person? Intent. Is there evidence someone wants to? And impact. What would the fallout be if something happened? When Harry and Meghan stepped back...
If we look at the bill for security as it stands by RASP for those former prime ministers, you're looking at a bill that's circa £2 million a year. So the bill currently stands for all of those prime ministers at about 24.5, 25 million pounds a year. And that's a heck of a draw, obviously, on funds from the Home Office.
As working royals in 2020, they lost their automatic taxpayer-funded protection. Since then, Harry's security has been assessed the same way any other individuals would be. Not guaranteed by title, but earned through demonstrated risk. Harry has argued in court, more than once, that this process is flawed.
You are so far down the list of priorities for RAVEC and the RMB, and you are not of importance. You're not a constant vulnerability here in the United Kingdom.
That is being treated unfairly compared to other family members. Courts have ruled against him twice on the substance of that argument, though the legal fight over the process itself has continued, including a fresh threat assessment reportedly ordered for the first time in years. Here's the tension, though. RAVEC isn't asking, is Harry famous?
Oh, did they meet with the king?
So
well,
everybody, everything was,
so.
Yeah. So we saw no pictures. They were able to get in and out without having their photos taken. The day of the tea, it was like a less than an hour long tea. There was an event at Highgrove for Chanel. So there were cars in and out, and Harry and Meghan, just looked like they were with the crowd, and they snuck in and out.
It's asking, is Harry, specifically, facing a capability and intent level threat that private security cannot handle? And that's the exact question this summer's visit just answered, in public. Prince Harry spent months telling the world he could not safely bring his wife and children back to Britain.
He still came because, remember, it was a maybe no, coming to the UK, that if he did come and if he brought Meghan and the kids, and that was without RASP protection, then he's already nullified his argument for why he needs to have it, because he's now come to the UK, this terribly scary frightening, violent location. And he's managed to come over with his own personal security, without RAS protection, still managed to meet with the king.
Read that again. No police protection, he argued, meant no visit. Then quietly, with almost no fanfare, he did exactly that. Private security, no armed police. And by most accounts, nothing happened. Reportedly, that's the problem. Because if nothing happened this time, critics are now asking the obvious question.
Harry's paying for his security. Nigel Farage, who is a serving MP of a leading political party here in the UK, who is more merited to have Home Office issued security via RAVEC, has decided, no, I'm not going to have the RAVEC provided. I'm going to pay for my own.
What exactly was the emergency? In the next 20 minutes, we're breaking down how this one quiet family reunion at Highgrove may have quietly unraveled a legal argument Harry has been building since 2020, and why a new lawsuit from his own charity could make things a lot worse. Let's get into it. Now here's...
He gets security, or he offers to pay for it. That opens up a huge Pandora's box of problems for every foreign national VIP who goes, you know what, he's not a serving royal. He's not doing royal duties. He doesn't have a job. He just thinks he's important, and he's coming to the UK and he has some money and he wants to throw it for royalty level protection and sovereign intelligence access. We've talked about that before. And ultimately, I'll pay for mine too.
Yeah, right. And then so all the gloves are off and anybody can do it.
Where the story stops being just about security and starts being about Harry's broader standing. Reports suggest Harry canceled or scaled back several planned charity engagements around this period, tied to both the security dispute and a recent court setback. For an organization deciding whether to host him, that pattern commitments made.
He was so defeated by that Daily Mail loss that he, along with Meghan, they did cancel several events that they had planned for the UK.
And pulled is reportedly starting to register as a reliability problem, not just a security one. That matters more than it sounds like, because charity partnerships run on trust and predictability. Venues, sponsors, and co-hosts build entire events around a headline guest. If that guest participation
in a close protection team, you'll have those that are actually with the principal all the time. Then you'll have the advance, and the advance is basically close protection guys who will go ahead of the principal before they arrive to make sure everything's good, everything's in the right shape. That causes for venues, I know this because when I've walked into various places, I've said, look, you know, we're guests, we're here, this is your home, we don't want to intrude, but we do need to make sure it's safe and secure for our principal to come to. And they would have also got very excited because closer to the event, and I've seen this when I've gone back on revisits prior to a visit, you see them getting all excited and they've told all their friends and you know, they've wheeled out their old elderly granny to come along and sit there and get an eyes on to Harry and Meghan. Then for that to be cancelled because he lost his fight in court and hadn't considered, and again, this is the arrogance of the man,
comes contingent on last-minute security wins or losses. Some organizations may start quietly hesitating before committing resources to future Harry appearances, regardless of how much good the underlying cause does. None of this has been confirmed as an organized backlash, but the pattern reported in the press.
Harry being as vocal and demonstrative and, you know, childish about certain people and his dislike of them, or, you know, the fact, I mean, him turning around and saying, my dad's not going to talk to me because of this security stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't think King Charles would have been particularly happy hearing that.
Right.
Because, you know, it doesn't paint him in the best of pictures. But, yeah, Harry poisoning the well of individuals that could have influence.
Commitments announced, then reworked or scaled back, is exactly the kind of thing that erodes goodwill over time, even if no single incident looks damning on its own. And this is arguably the bigger story sitting underneath all of it. Sentebale, the charity Harry co-founded in 2006 in memory of...
The message of what Invictus is about, which is, you know, wounded veterans competing in these games, their message has been diluted because of Harry and Meghan, because for absolutely the reasons you've just mentioned, it becomes the Harry and Meghan show.
Princess Diana has filed a defamation lawsuit against him, and against his longtime friend and former Sentebale trustee, Mark Dyer. Court filings from March 2026 list the claim as libel and slander. According to Sentebale's own public statement, the suit centers on what the charity calls a coordinated adverse media.
She has actually said that she first felt tension between Harry and herself about a year ago. That's a year before he resigned in March 2025. And she claims that the Duke's team asked her to defend his wife Meghan from negative publicity. And she says that she said, no, we're not setting a precedent by which we become an extension of the Sussex PR machine. So that's pretty hot, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And she says that the number one risk for this organization, meaning Sentebale, was the toxicity of its lead patron's brand.
Media campaign. It says caused operational and reputational harm going back to March 2025, the period when Harry, Prince Seeso of Lesotho, and the board resigned amid a bitter dispute with the charities chair, Dr. Sophie Shandaka. A spokesperson for Harry has firmly rejected the claims as offensive and without merit.
In an English civil case is now sort of the nuclear weapon, and both sides use it to the full. And they demand an absolute raft, an absolute catalogue, all your emails, all what's on your computers, what you've written to every possible person that you might have contacted about the subject matter of the case, and certainly journalists. The only privilege you have is not to reveal what passed between you and your lawyer.
And his side has pointed out the irony of a charity spending its own resources suing the men who built it. Here's why legal commentators are calling the discovery phase of this case genuinely high stakes. Defamation suits typically require the defense to produce evidence supporting their version of events. Internal communications.
The communications between Harry and Meghan dealing with this issue, with Sentebale, and not just sort of since the case arose, but going back from the very beginning. If Harry is texting Meghan saying, what a this Chandauku is, do you know what she's done yesterday, darling? Those messages are all to be revealed.
Messages and records relevant to the disputed period. Because the underlying dispute involves claims about coordinated media strategy, there's a real possibility that private correspondence, potentially including messages between Harry and Meghan from that period, could become relevant to the case and subject to disclosure.
So the potential embarrassment of the discovery process is nuclear. It really is. And I would imagine that's why he's going to be making a very big payment into court or offer to settle.
Speculative at this stage, and no court has ordered any such disclosure yet. But it's exactly the kind of scenario legal analysts flag as the most dangerous part of any high-profile defamation case. The lawsuit itself may matter less than what gets exposed along the way. Combine that with an already damaged security.
But she has said on record that the costs of this case are not being borne by the charity.
Oh.
She has not said who is bearing the costs. And she certainly hasn't said who it is if it's not the charity. Yeah. And bearing in mind the costs in these cases are enormous, you know. I mean, nobody with any sense except somebody with the most enormous pocket or who's being financed behind the scenes would ever bring a defamation case.
Security narrative, charity hesitation, and an Invictus mission fighting for its own spotlight. And you can see why commentators are. So where does that leave things? A security case reportedly undercut by the very visit meant to prove it was necessary. Charities reportedly reassessing his reliability. Invictus.
Now I'm going to make a wild guess that maybe one of these newspaper groups who want their revenge against Harry.
Wow.
For the circus that he's been playing all these years, maybe they're backing Sentebale.
That would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious, and in which case, expect the sparks to fly for the next many, many months and years.
Fighting to keep the focus on veterans. And a lawsuit from his own charity that could force open the one thing he spent years trying to protect, his private life. None of this is confirmed to be fatal to any of these fights. but the pattern is getting harder to ignore. What do you think? Was this visit a quiet win for him?
The court doesn't get involved. The court does not put pressure on to settle. The court is above the fray. That's the theory. And no judge wants to be seen to be pressuring either side to settle.
Harry, or the moment his security argument fell apart. Drop your tape below. If you want the full breakdown of the Sentebale case as it develops, subscribe and hit the bell. We'll be covering the discovery phase the moment anything becomes public. The Invictus Games is arguably Harry's most respected project.
He was the very judge who, in England, heard the Amber Heard-Johnny Depp case, which went for months, far longer even than Harry's litigation. And he came out with a long, detailed judgment where he found convincingly for Amber Heard and that she had been abused and had been assaulted, and all the nasty things she was saying against Johnny Depp were true. That's what happened in England, and damages were awarded. And then, of course, he brought his case in America, in, I think, the state of Virginia. Correct me if I'm wrong, and it was before a jury, and the jury on exactly the same evidence, but unaware, because they weren't allowed to know what had happened in England, reversed it completely and found convincingly for Depp.
Genuine, well-regarded initiative supporting wounded, injured, and sick servicemen and women. And that's exactly why this next criticism stings more than the others. Insiders and commentators have suggested that as Harry and Meghan's personal drama, security battles, lawsuits, family...
I would say, without doubt, Harry has far more to lose. And one reason is this. Firstly, because anything that is negative publicity for him, who employs half the world's PR experts to protect him from negative publicity, and he needs to because he seems to want to put his foot in it so often. He's much less sure-footed, I think you'll agree with me, than is Meghan when it comes to public relations.
Riffs, dominates headlines, media coverage around Invictus events increasingly centers on the couple rather than the veterans the games were built to celebrate. The one-year countdown event ahead of Birmingham 2027 is a good example. A milestone meant to spotlight competing veterans instead generated headlines almost entirely.
He hasn't got royal duties. He's not doing anything important. He's not doing anything for the royal family. He's not contributing to the economy. He's not doing stuff which ultimately is going to benefit the royal family. If anything, he's more of a hindrance. He's more of an impact than anything else. So he's not in a situation where he has value to bring that makes it justifiable for Ravik to deploy resources to support.
About Harry's security dispute and his family's travel plans. To be clear, this isn't a claim that Harry no longer cares about the games. By all accounts, he remains deeply committed to it. It's a structural problem. When a public figure becomes this magnetic for scandal-adjacent coverage, it becomes very hard for the cause standing next to him.
Oh, you know, it has the potential, does this, mark my words, to be far bigger even than the last case that was such a complete publicity disaster for him. This really has the potential to be bigger.
To get its own oxygen. That's a real risk for Invictus as it heads toward its next games, regardless of intent. This is where the comparison to Nigel Farage keeps coming up in commentary circles. And it's worth being careful here because this is where things shade from fact into argument. Farage has spoken publicly on...
He decides the pace now. She's in the driving seat, by she, I mean Sophie Chandaukwa. And Harry doesn't have the ability just to pull out when it suits him, as he did with some of his newspaper cases, where he either settled or came to an agreement or pulled out in certain cases without taking it to trial. Well, he was then in the driving seat, but now she is. So this must be a very novel and very uncomfortable experience for him, and I think it's only just beginning.
And when on multiple occasions about receiving serious threats, reportedly including incidents that required police involvement. Yet he operates day-to-day with privately arranged security, not a permanent armed state detail. Commentators making this comparison argue that if a sitting political figure who says he's faced real